Welcome back to olliegolf.com. I'm your host and founder, David Igono. Today I'm here with head men's coach at Chico State, T.L. Brown. Coach Brown, how are you?
Good morning. Nice to talk to you, David.
Now, I can call you T.L., right? We don't have to be super formal on this interview, right?
You can call me whatever you want. You know, my name is Travis, but I go by T.L., you bet.
Okay. I'll just go with T.L. So,
right.
Before we get into the real questions, let's talk about some fun in golf. What is the most unique hole that you've either played on or your team has practiced at or competed on in the last, let's just say, the spring season?
The spring season. Well, Division II, we don't get to play some of the golf courses that Division I gets to play, but we played in a Division I tournament down in Sacramento not too long ago. We got to play at Valley High Country Club, old school course. Got to play with the big boys and played pretty well. Golf course is in great shape, but we're leaving tomorrow for Miami Beach to go out to play Normandy Shores Golf Club, an old course there in Miami Beach, and we're excited about that. I think some of the courses that are coming up on our schedule this spring are going to be probably a lot better than the courses that we've played so far to date on our season.
Okay, that's awesome. At the very least, there will be some aspect of adventure and awe going into some newer courses. It's always good to go to Miami.
Yeah. We're lucky here at Chico State. We've been successful. We've been able to get some invitations to play in some Division I tournaments. I know we were able to play in the Stanford tournament, U.S. Intercollegiate, a few years back. Got to play in Palo Alto on their course. And we got to play this last fall at Washington State up in Pullman. They've just built a brand-new golf course on campus. They're hosting the Pac-12 championship for the men next year, and they're hosting the West Regionals up there. So we got an invitation to go play with the big boys in the fall. We did okay, finished middle of the pack, so it's good. We do get to play some really nice golf courses. Generally, it's in the postseason. Our nationals is in Michigan this year. So.
Now, let's jump right into the interview. So, how did you get hooked into playing golf?
Well, my grandfather was a pretty prestigious. He was a great amateur in the Northwest, and my father, his name was Phil Brown. He owned a golf management company, and I was able to I was raised in the business, and I always wanted to be in the golf shop. But my dad raised me to learn how to grow grass and cut cups and mow grass and fertilize and sprinklers and all that. And I learned to kind of appreciate the entire side of the business. And I worked in the public and the private and the resort sectors of the golf industry. And I was really blessed to have that opportunity to have golf courses and the business at my disposal to kind of learn from all the golf pros that worked for my father over the years, and just to work in the industry during the summers and while I was going to college. And it's a great time of my life. My dad's retired now, but I can't thank him enough for that opportunity to be raised in the golf business. That's what got me into golf.
So being raised in the golf business, did you? I'm sure that you competed as a player to a certain degree, but what was that like? Just knowing, let's just call it the back end, the business end. Whether it's club fitting or green management, what have you. What was it like playing? Was it the same stimulation or determination / drive as working in the business?
Well, it was two different things. My father, he came from a different background, and he always told me that I should. He was supportive of what I wanted to do. I wanted to. If I wasn't going to make it as a professional golfer, as a player, then he wanted me to follow my my career with what my college education was, and I always wanted to be in the golf industry. And I would say that when I was, most of us when we were younger were playing sports, baseball, and a lot of team sports, and I kind of got into golf late, probably I'd say junior high school. I really kind of took just took a real interest in the competitive part. That if somebody messed up, it was me that messed up. I had nobody else to blame. And as I went into college on a golf scholarship, I went to Washington State, and then I played at Idaho to finish it up. And I wanted to keep competing and chasing that dream. And I tell you, the golf business was not. I don't think that's what my father wanted to do, but I did try to get out of the golf business and to do other things. And I realized I needed to follow what I love to do. When I got up in the morning, I wanted to be doing something in the golf industry. So, after my days of competitive golf, professional golf, I chose to teach the game, and I knew, like about 1992, 93, I really wanted to coach golf for a living.
So, let's highlight that. So,
Sure.
After, like you said, your dad didn't discourage you, but he also wanted, for you to think long term,
Sure.
and you wanted to be in the golf business. Let's just say the golf landscape, because some parts of it are business, some parts of it aren't. It's not a business. Right. It's more so that's not the focal point. Did you aspire to be a college coach? Was that on your radar, or did that fall into your lap?
Well, it never really. I would say I took the long road to college golf, and my dream has always been to be a Division I golf coach, and I think I put that on a pedestal a little bit. And I would say there were some places that I wanted to go and play college golf where I was going to be challenged, and I chose Washington State, and we were I love the Cougars. No disrespect to Washington State, but at the time we were kind of the doormat of the Pac-10 back then, and things didn't really work out there. So I went on to be involved with the University of Idaho, full ride scholarship, and being there and being around all the golf professionals that worked for my father, and then spending a year as a touring professional playing a little bit of golf out there. I kept coming back to the golf swing, teaching the golf game. I started coaching a high school team right when I finished playing, and when I was working for my father. And I kind of knew that this is what I want to do, and I knew it kind of at a pretty young. I'm right out of college, so my final year at University of Idaho, there was a couple of matches where I was able to be a player coach. Our coach was having some difficulties, and he had me drive the team and take the team to some tournaments. And I've never, that was kind of a strange situation, being a senior and coaching and being involved with the Vandal golf team, and a couple tournaments down the road, I was there without a coach, and I was, it's tough to kind of coach and play. So I knew at a young age that, in my early 20s, this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Wow. So, and we'll definitely get more up to speed, but what was that like being a player coach? You hear about that in the 50s and the 60s with Bill Russell and, in other sports too, or, basketball, but in golf, where it's very much an individual sport and a team dynamic, and there's five of you. There's five of you. So it's not like, basketball has 5-on-5, but there's very much a team dynamic there. But in golf, everybody needs to be gunning for their own score, but still be part of a pack, if you will, at the end of the day. But you're the player coach. How, the word that comes to my mind is awkward. Not in the sense that you didn't pull it off, but what was that like? Well,
in that moment in time, I was still growing as a young man, I would say, and my goal was try to make it to the postseason. Our team at Idaho in Moscow, it wasn't. We had the Big Sky Conference, and we hadn't played in the tournaments that were going to get us to the postseason. I still had a slim chance to make it as an individual to the region championship, and my focus, my simple focus was to make sure that the guys got out of bed on time, and that there was gas in the van, and that we got to our tee times on time, and that we had adequate, breakfast in our systems, and we were ready to go to compete. That was basically it. I would tell you that it was more about, I was trying to focus on what I wanted to do, wanted to make sure the team got there on time. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that was, at 21, 22, you're just trying to get there on time, especially without your normal coach there.
Yeah, so I mean, let's walk a little bit further down the path. So
Sure.
Then, after you're done at Idaho, then where did you go as far as coaching?
Well, it took me 5 years to get my degree, and in the fall of my 5th year at Idaho, I was playing in an amateur golf tournament, and I made a hole-in-one for $10,000, and I had to, I didn't have my golf scholarship then. I was going to have to get a job to finish up my degree, and it was nice to get that $10,000, and I was able to work on taking people to lunch, getting some investors, and putting together a proposal, and getting some money in the bank account. And then upon graduation, in the spring of '93, I proceeded to go to the Canadian Tour and State Opens, and I traveled the nation playing Nike Tour Monday qualifiers, and I was able to kind of invest in myself as well. And it's nice to, people, when they're going to give $2,000 to a young man, they want to make sure that they're not just throwing this money away, and if they saw that I was investing my own money into the venture, that I might be focused a little bit more on not wasting my money. So it was tough, but I was able to raise some money to get out there for a year, and it was an incredible time in my life. I got to travel like I was in college still, and play against the best. Looking back at that time, I can tell you that I was a player that made a lot of pars, but I just didn't make enough birdies. And I'd miss greens, I'd get up and down, I'd shoot a lot of 70s, 71s, and even today, even back then, 70s, 71s, it doesn't put money in the bank account. So It was difficult playing the game for the pride of playing, and now I'm playing to make a living. It was a huge change going from college to that, and then I was playing with other people's money and as well as mine, and the game kind of changed for me a little bit. My style of play was about shooting 70, 71, 72, and to play professional golf, you've got to be able to make 4, 5, 6 birdies a round. So I only lasted a year, and I realized I wanted to become a club pro, and it was tough to try to get investors back to invest that second year without any profit margin there. So it was tough to take there for a while. That's what I had been working on so hard. And I see this with a lot of the student athletes I coach now. Their dream was always to be on the PGA Tour, and it is extremely difficult to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. One of the points I like to make during my interviews, during conversations, is to not focus on the low points, but to be honest in the challenges. And I think in sports we have this invisible script where we must sensationalize the good parts of what we do and not really talk about the parts where we failed. I played college football, played at WVU, and that was pretty cool. And I wanted to play in the NFL, but I knew to do that I needed to play, arena ball, because it was an option. You don't want to spurn options when they're given to you. But at a certain point, 2 years in, I was like, it's just not going to work. It's not that I'm not good enough, or maybe it is as simple as I'm not good enough. But I just see that there's more to what I can offer than to focus on beating my head against something that I'm just not. I don't have to define my success by one unilateral goal. I can
exactly
tweak it,
exactly.
And that's, to me, hearing that it just didn't work out. The way my strategy, the way that this is you speaking, that you want to shoot 70, 71, that's not going to work. It didn't work for a year, and that's okay. It didn't work. It allows you to focus on something else after a year.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So the year on, let's just call it year playing pro golf. What did that open your eyes to as far as it didn't work out, but were you discouraged, or were you just checklist? all right, pro golfer, not happening. Next goal, next dream.
You know, I think that we all we reach those crossroads, and we've got to really, you know, be honest with ourselves. And you know, I at the time, you know what I know now. You know, we always say that. I think I maybe emotionally labeled my putts in the way I executed. Let's say a red putt, like a birdie putt, in relationship to maybe a par putt. I just felt like, you know, I had a great up and down percentage. I had a great wedge game. I could putt great for par, but you know, if I was knocking it stiff, you know, and I had a birdie putt, it tended to always lip out. And you know, I would look at other players, and I knew that I was at times had better short game, and at times I was a better ball striker. But at the end of the day, you know, when we're signing the scorecards, you know, they'd look at my card. Wow, I thought you were lower than that. You know, you shot 71, huh? These guys are shooting 66. So, you know, the distance, you know, 4 to 5 shots, that's huge. And you don't make a cut with 71, 71. And a lot of these Monday qualifiers, there'd be 100 guys who'd just paid $250. And, you know, if you didn't shoot 68, 67, you weren't even in the playoff. And, you know, it was, you know, discouraging then to get to maybe make a tournament and then, you know, go to a totally different golf course where there's guys that have their cards that have already got used to the golf course. And now, you know, you got maybe one afternoon to see the course, and then you're shooting 71, 73, and not playing bad, but you felt like you had a little bit more time on the golf course. You might have had maybe played a little bit differently, and you got a little bit more used to the speed of the greens and just the way they broke, so you could read them a little bit better. You might have made a few more of those putts, but that's kind of that's how the game works. You got to put your time in, and those putts have got to fall. And if those putts don't fall, your career as a professional golfer, you're not going to be out there much longer. So I had to learn that, and it was tough, and I was depressed, but I knew I wanted to be around golf, and I wanted to kind of, you know, I wanted to show people that and maybe I didn't do it the right way, and I was learning how to be successful, and I wanted to teach other people that.
So did you, as far as teaching, did you want to start and say, like at a club, being a club pro, or coach high school or college? Like what was your first opportunity as, you know, as a teacher that you took?
Yeah, you know, the thing that's interesting is that I had this plan that I wasn't going to give up, so I still in the back of my mind wanted to play professional golf. So I thought I could join the golf business, the PGA of America, and still chase the dream of playing golf. And one of the things that I tell young men now that tell me that they're going to be a club pro and chase the dream, I tell them, don't do that. It's almost impossible to be a PGA golf professional and then have a playing career. You need to have backing. You need to have some people taking care of you financially, investors, or you need to have a night job that you can practice during the day. So, you know, I worked from one of my father's businesses, Brighton Canyon Golf Course in Lewiston, Idaho, and I thought I could save my lesson revenue and save my state open and just pro-am money into like an account, and I thought I could, you know, in another year get back out there, and before long, you know, 5 years goes by, and it's real difficult. You know, the real life kind of starts to, you know, you get yourself a girlfriend, and you start looking at, you know, apartment and, you know, bills, and, you know, it's just life goes by really, really fast, and you really can't waste those opportunities to prepare yourself. And, you know, I'd get out there, and I had a chance to qualify for the U.S. Open in '94. I made it through the local qualifying, and I got to the sectionals of the U.S. Open. I was playing pretty well, and you know, here I am playing against guys that have tour cards and guys that are playing golf for a living every single day. And I, at the time, was, you know, at a register selling golf clubs, running tournaments, giving golf lessons. There's a big difference between being a golf professional and a professional golfer. And, you know, that experience of failing a lot gives so much people such an opportunity to, when the flag's down and it's time to play, people that are playing golf for a living on a daily basis had such a huge advantage over a club pro. So when you do see those stories when a club pro breaks through and makes it on the tour, that's a special moment. I mean, that stuff just doesn't happen very often. So for those few years I worked for my father, I really did enjoy the golf business, but most of all I enjoyed teaching the game and how to play the game and how to prepare, those types of things. Not so much the golf swing per se, because I think there's so much more to golf than just the golf swing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And one of the things, just going through some of my points, research points for this interview, is that you have, I don't know how common or uncommon it is, but you have a unique background in the sense that you not only did you play golf collegiately and some a year or so on the trying to be on the tour or a tour, about the back end. So you have this, let's just call it this global golf knowledge that is burgeoning. It's growing. It's you're even though you're not necessarily succeeding on a level that you're content with, you're still investing in yourself, and you're still you have a foundation that is becoming more and more fertile. I feel kind of crazy because I'm adding all these different analogies, but the point I'm trying to make is that I'm looking at just your career as a coach, whether it's high school or college or junior college or whatever. You have a global perspective. When I say global, sure, I don't mean kids playing in Malaysia. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking as far as you understand the golf landscape. And I think in a lot of fields, especially in sports, there's very few people that understand the whole ecosystem of golf. One of the quotes that I thought was pretty cool, and it was about business, is that the guy was like, it might have been Guy Kawasaki. He was like, people always want to make business into this mano a mano war. Well, it doesn't really have to be that. Business is very much an ecosystem. Not every member in the jungle, not every animal in the jungle eats another animal per se. There's not always a natural predator or what have you. So it's all about finding what you're good at and accentuating it. So, my question, that was sort of a long-winded segue, but my question is, you have a very diverse and deep knowledge of the game and just the business side. The teaching side is what you're trying to cultivate. How was that process as fast as the playing side, the competition side?
Well, on the coaching side, I think that on the playing side is kind of being honest with myself, realizing that maybe I didn't have the confidence, maybe I didn't prepare the right way. Learning, it took time. It takes time to learn how to coach, and it definitely takes time to learn how to play the game. And I guess I don't know if I'm answering your question right, but I think that connecting with people and really listening to what they have to say and finding out what they need, and then that's even with my game, I had to find out. I had to listen to. I just had to kind of reach out and find things that to connect, so I could connect with people. And that's kind of how I got into the coaching side, because I felt like I could do more with my life, getting people to their goals. And that's kind of what it was. And I found a love for coaching the game and kind of looking at the more traditional approach. There's a ton of ways to coach, and sometimes the traditional way with golf isn't the way to go. And I think the success I've had as a college golf coach has been connecting to my players. So I've kind of let go of what I wanted to do, my personal goals, and my goal in life I felt like was to try to help people get to their goals, and that's kind of what it was. And it brought me more joy to see people achieve things, maybe a more simpler way than the way maybe I took with my playing and coaching. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Well, that's actually a great reversal of my question, because my question was more. Oh no, trust me, it's more than. It's awesome, because my question was more surface, more shallow, than what you just said, which is fine. But your answer speaks to the whole point of me doing interviews, the whole point of me asking about your career in golf and your career in general. How do you have success? Everybody wants success. You just said that you figured out that it's better to just let go of your goals and help other people get to theirs. And you see success in your life. I mean, I don't want to beat that to a pulp, but can you give us an example of that? Because I feel like, and I'll be 100% honest, I feel like as young men who play sports, who are in our culture, it is like you have to be the alpha male. You have to be all about your success, your everything. And it's not that it's selfish, but I think that it makes you so blinded to the opportunity to connect. It's a word you use a couple times now that I think is paramount in business, but business. Same
thing in business. Same thing in the real world. Yes.
Yeah. Business people, they don't say connect. They say networking, or they kind of declassify it in a way that doesn't do what your career can speak to as a reference, what connecting really is. So I mean, that transition of focusing less on your success and focusing on your players. Can you give us an example of that?
Well, you're right on. Just in the last, I'd say, 10, 12, 15 years, I've seen even the last 10 years, I've seen a big change in the young men that come in, 18 to 22. I'm not picking on California. I'm not. But, generally, golf is a game you've got middle income and above. Not always, but you do have. I'm not trying to generalize, but you've got some entitlement issues out there. And, I'm not trying to knock, golf per se, but you've got young men that have seen it all, been given it all, and expect to be number one. And the real world really isn't like that. And, I was talking about the traditional way to coach. And, I'm not trying to knock Bobby Knight. He did a lot of great things. But, hey, it's my way or the highway. And, there's a ton of different ways to coach. And you really need to understand your players. And until you understand them, you really don't know how to coach them. So your way of coaching, the way you've always done it, might not work with this group of guys. So every year, I need to learn everything about. I need to have personal relationships with my players, where we learn to trust each other. It's not my team; it is our team. We work together to be the best we can together. And I feel like I do feel like there's young men that they yearn for structure, they yearn for discipline. That's fine. Those are all parts of our golf program. But then again, if a young man says, "Hey, well, let's try this, coach," I'm not going to be offended by that statement. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to see if it's got some value. I'm going to see if it's going to benefit the entire team. And if it is, we're going to go with it. And, when you get to communicate and get to know how your student athletes tick, you find out how they learn. You find out how they're motivated. To one player, you can go up and get in his face behind closed doors, and you can yell and scream, and you can say, "You need to pull it out. You need to work harder." And to another kid, you maybe need to give him a hug. You need to sit down and have more of an intimate conversation and find out the details and tell them that you're there for them. Every kid is different. You just can't coach an entire group of guys the same way. Now, there's structure that needs to be there, but you need to connect, and you need to coach, and you need to know your players in a way that you coach them and you motivate them in different ways at the right time. And if you're not doing it at the right time, you might miss the boat. So that's kind of in a short version of what you asked me there.
And that's. It's funny how the short version is so revealing in a sense that there's so much more to it. But just as far as dealing with the relationship side, one of the few tenets that I always try to bring up is relational versus transactional. So, especially in sports, especially in business, especially in anything that has any lasting value, you can either have a transactional point of view towards it or a relational view towards it. Transactional is what can I get at the best cost for me right now. Relational is this is an awesome opportunity. I want to see what I can do to it so that I can do it as long as I can and reap as many benefits as I can and give benefits back. What's your view on just that relational, transactional, contrast?
Well, I'm all about, golf, like you said, golf is really about, golf's really kind of about, individual stuff. And in college, it's a team game, and they make it a team game, and you count 4 scores, so it's a team. So I'm all about the team, and I'm less about the individual. And sometimes, I think I mentioned this before, I think you even mentioned it earlier, sometimes you've got to fail a lot. And so when you talk about bottom line and you talk about sports, I think that sometimes you have to fail a little bit. You need to look more long term. You need to put the time in. You need to learn. You need to learn slowly, and things will happen if you do it the right way. So, the relationship, the connection of the players and the growth of the team, I think that's more valuable. And if they can learn that, and a lot of these young men, they want it now. They want it now. They want to be great now. They dominated in high school. They want it now. And sometimes, the college game is a little different. And sometimes being in a team that's really good, everybody works and just as smart as them. They're not used to that. They're coming from a program where they were the number one dog, and now all of a sudden everybody's been a number one dog, and now they kind of have some interesting relationships. And on the surface level, you need to really let go of me and be more about what do we need to do for the team, and we look long term, and maybe we have to learn how to win and be successful in the arena, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But, have faith, keep working hard, little steps, we'll get there.
Now, I must be honest here. I feel like this has been a great conversation, and we haven't really gotten into the specifics of just where you're at now. And
sure.
If you're open to it, I would love to do that on another
Let's
call.
Yeah.
But this conversation to me is just so. I almost used the word precious, which would be not manly, but whatever. It's a very, very, very important conversation for the young athlete, because a lot of what young athletes don't understand is that the one thing that drives them to be better is the one thing that kills their perspective.
Sure.
You hear the guidance counselor in high school saying, only 1% of you will ever get to play your sport as a pro. You get,
true.
1 out of 1, blah, 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 blah. And, I remember I would sit in my class or, when we have to go to guidance counselor, we're like, not going to be me. I'm going to be the outlier. I'm going to be the one that everybody remembers from my class, from my high school. And It was true. It was very true. But that same mindset blinded me and handicapped me once my career started to wind down, but when I got into the real world, the business world, where you cannot be tunnel visioned. You have to be able to see the opportunities and use your athletic abilities and athletic training and background to become successful. But that same gladiator, I will get vengeance type of thing, and I will put my name in lights thing is the same thing that hampers athletes. And let's be brutally honest, no matter what sport you play, the likelihood of you playing that sport for more than 2 or 3 seasons or years are not in your favor. They're not in your favor. So what can you learn? And again, this conversation has been so like we have to do this again. I feel like this is only the beginning of the conversation, really, because there's so much depth to it that I don't believe it's talked about. I don't know if it's talked about enough in golf, for that matter.
But yeah, college golf is changing, and the game is changing, and the way we teach is changing, and the way the NCAA runs their events is changing. And I'd love to talk to you again, David. I think there's a lot to talk about, and like I said, we didn't get to talk much about the Chico State Wildcats. So that's
no, and that's if nothing else, that's what I say. This, with all seriousness, I owe you that. I owe you an opportunity to just give us insight, because I want it. I want insight into the program. It's one thing to see headlines, blank college wins at blank intercollegiate, blank tournament, blank season. Like, that's cool or whatever. But to hear it from, the guys within, to me, that's cool. I want to read about that. So how about we do this? I want to end the call right there. I already see the headline for this, for this post, where how failing can help you. Because people always want to talk about how successes help you and why you have to succeed and why you have to cut corners and all these other things. And it's like, sometimes failing is the best way to succeed. But we have to do this again soon, and I'm sure we'll talk about this after the call, but this has been an awesome interview, and I just want to thank you for taking time out to do it.
David, I thank you for calling me, and anybody that wants to talk college golf, call me. Because college golf is, other than my family, it's my life. I love the game. It's done so much for me, and being involved in sport, I'm very blessed, and I just to be able to coach young men and be able to get excited in the morning, going to my job. I'm like I said, I'm blessed, and it's just a great thing to do in my life. So, let's talk again.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again, T.O., and thank everybody else for being a part of it.